welcome back to our channel. The storm outside Fairmont Crest mirrored the one rising inside Vernon's chest. The moment Sharon revealed the truth, the air in the room changed, thickened, crackled, and turned into something unbearable. He stood there frozen, as though the floor had given way beneath him, and for a brief, nauseating moment, he forgot how to breathe. June. That name had haunted him once, faintly, like a melody from another life, but hearing Sharon's voice tie it to him, with blood, with guilt, with finality, made the world collapse in slow motion. The walls that had once kept his secrets now felt like prison bars closing in. The fire in the hearth hissed, throwing ghostly light across his face, making him look like a man being judged by the shadows of his own past. Sharon's revelation had not been an act of malice alone, it was vengeance wrapped in truth. She had known for months, had watched him speak of loyalty, honor, and family, while the blood of the woman he once abandoned lived just a few miles away, unacknowledged and unprotected. June had come to Fairmont Crest not by coincidence, but by destiny's cruel design. She had crossed his path, stirred something paternal he could not explain, and then disappeared again as if fate were toying with him. Now, as Sharon exposed the final piece of that buried puzzle, Vernon felt his life split open from within. Every carefully placed brick of his legacy, every illusion of integrity, every lie he had told himself about the man he had become, all turned to dust. He pressed his trembling hands against the edge of the desk, gripping it so hard that his knuckles turned white. Images flashed before his eyes, a young woman's tear-streaked face decades ago, the hurried whisper of goodbye, a child he was told never existed. The truth came back like the taste of rusted metal. The woman he once loved, before Anita, before Fairmont Crest, had vanished without a trace. Now he knew why. She had left carrying a part of him, a living reminder of his weakness. June was that reminder, breathing, walking, unknowingly bound to the very man she should have been able to call father. Inside him, emotions collided like tectonic plates, shock, grief, guilt, and a new, suffocating kind of terror. But beneath it all simmered something darker, anger. Anger at Sharon for revealing this when he was most vulnerable, anger at himself for being blind, and anger at fate for crafting a story so cruel it bordered on divine punishment. His entire empire, the Dupree name, the Fairmont image, all of it had been built on the illusion of control. Now, that illusion was bleeding out in front of him. If this truth reached Anita, she would not forgive. She would see this not as a mistake of the heart, but as a betrayal of bloodline, a stain that could never be washed away. Sharon's eyes lingered on him before she turned to leave, but her silence was more damning than any accusation. The moment the door closed, the echo of her heels dissolved into a void that seemed to swallow the house whole. Vernon was left alone with the storm, and the storm did not pity him. He staggered toward the window, rain streaking down the glass like veins of guilt crawling across his reflection. Outside, lightning illuminated the gates of Fairmont Crest, those iron symbols of exclusion, meant to keep danger out. Yet, the greatest danger had always been inside, wearing his face. He sank into the chair, his breath coming shallow and uneven. The thought of June now burned behind his eyelids. She had been kind, curious, and strangely familiar. He had dismissed it as empathy, a mentor's fondness, but now he realized it had been something primal, a recognition that had no name. Every moment he had shared with her now replayed in twisted clarity, every word acquiring a new, unbearable meaning. What he had seen as chance had been fate's slow cruelty. What he had believed to be a brief encounter was a test of conscience he had already failed. Down the hall, Anita's laughter echoed faintly, a sound from another world. It reminded him of everything that was at stake. The family dinners, the public appearances, the carefully curated image of a man who had it all. If she discovered this, everything would end. Anita had always suspected he carried ghosts, but she never imagined one would come back with his blood in her veins. Vernon knew the moment this secret slipped out, Fairmont Crest would cease to be a sanctuary, it would become a battlefield. He rose abruptly and opened the drawer of his desk. Inside lay a stack of letters tied with a faded ribbon, the only remnants of the woman from his past. He had kept them hidden, buried beneath decades of denial. His hands shook as he untied them, scanning the words through blurred vision. The last letter stopped him cold. It spoke of a child born in secrecy, taken away for protection, for fear that Vernon's ambition and his powerful family would destroy her before she could live. It was signed with one word, her name, and dated the same year June was born. He could not deny it any longer. Sharon hadn't lied. The truth was right there in his own handwriting, a reply he had never sent, an apology he had never spoken. A low growl of thunder rumbled through the house. Vernon crushed the letter in his fist, but paper was not what he wanted to destroy. He wanted to undo time itself. But time, like guilt, never moves backward. He paced the room like a caged animal, torn between confession and concealment. If he confessed, Anita would leave him. His children would despise him. The empire he had built would crumble in the eyes of the public. Yet, if he kept it hidden, the truth would rot beneath the surface, poisoning everything he touched. There was no choice that did not end in ruin. In the shadows, another thought took root, a temptation he hated himself for considering. Sharon had not just revealed the truth, she had become a liability. If she spoke again, the world would know. The political donors, the investors, the press, all waiting for a scandal. One whispered rumor about a hidden daughter and a forgotten lover, and his entire career would vanish overnight. His mind spiraled into places darker than he had ever gone. The rage in him was no longer just self-loathing, it was survival instinct, raw and dangerous. Lightning flashed again, revealing his reflection in the mirror across the room. He didn't recognize the man staring back. The eyes were hollow, the mouth tense with suppressed violence. He understood then that the man who had once sought respect had become a creature of fear. He was willing to do anything to bury the truth. Sharon's knowledge was a ticking clock, and he could already hear it counting down. The thought of confronting her again sent a chill down his spine, but he knew it was inevitable. And then came the image that would not leave his mind, June's face, innocent yet hauntingly familiar, standing in front of him, calling him by name with trust in her voice. If she ever learned who he truly was, that trust would shatter. She would hate him for abandoning her mother, for pretending not to know her, for living a lie built on silence. Vernon pressed his palms against his temples, feeling madness creep in like fog. The storm outside intensified, beating against the glass like a warning. He knew what he had to do, but every path forward was soaked in sin. In the hall, a clock struck midnight. Its chime echoed through Fairmont Crest like the tolling of a bell for the dead. Vernon closed his eyes, a single tear slipping free before he crushed it away with shaking fingers. Somewhere deep inside, beneath the rage, beneath the shame, a quiet voice whispered that perhaps this was justice, that every lie eventually finds its way home. But he was not ready to surrender. He was Vernon Dupree, and men like him did not fall, they controlled the fall. He walked toward the fireplace, threw the letters into the flames, and watched them curl into ash. The paper blackened, the ink dissolved, but the guilt refused to burn. He stared into the fire until the heat began to sting his eyes. Somewhere, miles away, June was sleeping, unaware that the storm that had created her was gathering strength again. Sharon had lit the match. Vernon would decide how far the blaze would spread. And as the thunder rolled across the horizon, he made a vow that chilled even his own soul: the truth would not destroy him, it would obey him. Yet, deep down, he knew that no man could command a secret born of blood. It was alive now, breathing through every wall of Fairmont Crest, waiting for the moment to consume them all. The rain had turned relentless, drumming against the glass as if the heavens themselves were demanding confession. Vernon stood alone in the dim glow of the dying fire, the last ember of warmth fading from both the hearth and his heart. The air was thick with smoke, with guilt, with the ghost of a name he could no longer escape. June. It was not just a name anymore, it was a wound, a reckoning, a mirror showing him everything he had refused to face. The firelight trembled across his face, revealing not power, not control, but a man cornered by his own past. The letters were gone, reduced to ash, but the truth still pulsed beneath his skin, refusing to die. He understood now that burning the evidence would not cleanse him. It would only make the secret hungrier, more alive. As the storm deepened, the silence of Fairmont Crest began to feel unbearable. Every tick of the clock mocked him, every creak of the floor whispered her name. June's face haunted him, those eyes that once made him uneasy now carried the unmistakable reflection of his own. He thought of how easily he had smiled at her, how quickly he had felt drawn to her presence, never realizing that the bond had already existed in blood. Now, that bond had turned into a curse, a truth that could destroy everyone he loved. He could already see Anita's face when she found out, the fury, the humiliation, the cold finality of a woman betrayed not just by infidelity, but by the deepest form of deceit. Vernon's breath trembled as he pressed a hand against the windowpane, the cold seeping into his skin. Beyond the rain, the estate stretched into darkness, a kingdom built on silence and pride. It would not survive the morning if this truth escaped. Somewhere in that darkness, Sharon was still out there, alive, dangerous, holding the power to end him with a single whisper. He knew he would have to face her again, and when he did, one of them would not walk away the same. The line between guilt and survival had blurred beyond recognition. The clock struck once, sharp and final. Vernon turned from the window, his shadow stretching long across the floor, and in that shadow lived a decision he could no longer undo. He had once believed that wealth and power could hide any sin, but this sin had blood, and blood never forgets. As the last flame in the fireplace flickered out, Vernon felt the weight of the night settle upon him, a sentence, not from any court, but from his own conscience. The truth was out there now, and it was coming for him. Whether in the voice of Sharon, in the eyes of Anita, or in the quiet return of June, it would not rest until it consumed everything he had built. And for the first time in his life, Vernon understood what it meant to truly be powerless.